Texas report.
1993. That was the year the storm of the century proved that nature could still bring the world's only superpower to its knees. But today, in January 2026, as Winter Storm Fern carves a path of ice from the Rio Grande to the Canadian border, we aren't just facing a repeat of history. We are facing a reckoning. Tonight, we look at why 30 years of technological progress failed to keep the lights on in Nashville, and how President Trump is using this ice tomb to fundamentally rewrite the rules of American energy. History doesn't repeat itself, but it certainly rhymes in a lower, more terrifying frequency. 33 years ago, in March 1993, the United States was struck by what meteorologists called the storm of the century. It was a cyclonic monster that stretched from Cuba to Canada, killing 318 people and causing $5.5 billion in damages. For decades, it remained the gold standard of American winter catastrophes, the benchmark of how bad things could get. Until this week, until Winter Storm Fern. But here is the detail that the mainstream networks are missing. In 1993, we were caught off guard by the sheer physics of the snow. In 2026, we have the best satellite arrays in human history. We saw Fern coming 10 days out. We had the models. We had the data. And yet, here we are, with 19,000 flights evaporated and 230 million people shivering in a darkness that feels more like the 19th century than the 21st. Why is the damage so much worse now? Because in 1993, our world wasn't run on just-in-time logistics. In 1993, we didn't have a national power grid that was integrated with high-frequency trading and data center clusters. We have traded resilience for efficiency, and Fern just presented the bill. As we speak, President Trump is not sitting in the Oval Office issuing generic thoughts and prayers. He is treating this like a theater of war. From his command center, the rhetoric is clear. This isn't just a weather event. It is a national security breach caused by 30 years of infrastructure neglect. But as we peel back the frost, we realize that Fern isn't just fighting the weather. It's fighting a legacy of failure that began long before this administration took the oath. To understand why the lights are out in Nashville and New Orleans today, you have to look back at the February 2021 Texas freeze, Winter Storm Uri. That was the warning shot. That was the moment we learned that an unwinterized grid is a suicide pact. In 2021, Texas came within 4 minutes and 37 seconds of a total month-long blackout. Fast forward to today. The Trump administration inherited a grid that was supposedly fixed, but Fern has exposed the lie. Despite the billions spent on hardening, the surge in demand, driven by a 20-gigawatt spike as Americans crank up the heat, has pushed wholesale prices to an astronomical $3,000 per megawatt hour. For the average viewer, that number is an abstraction. Let's make it real. If you ran your heater at that rate for a month, your bill wouldn't be $200. It would be $15,000. President Trump's reaction has been a total departure from the wait-and-see approach of the Biden-era response to Storm Elliott in 2022. Trump has gone on the offensive. Within hours of the grid's first tremor, he invoked Section 202C of the Federal Power Act. This is the industrial draft. By ordering private data centers and manufacturing plants to hand over their backup generators to the public grid, Trump is signaling a new era of crisis governance. On Truth Social, the president was blunt. The Green New Deal has left our people freezing in the dark. We are ending the war on coal and gas tonight. If you have power, you are sharing it. America comes first, even in the freeze. This is a calculated political move. By bypassing the usual state-level bureaucracies, Trump is framing the ice tomb as a failure of the globalist energy transition. He is connecting the frozen pipes in Georgia to the policy decisions made in Brussels and D.C. over the last decade. But follow the money. Behind the scenes, the Bank of America is sounding the alarm. This isn't just a week of bad weather. It is a 1.5% hit to the GDP. When the Mississippi River freezes, the corn and soy that feed the world stop moving. When 19,000 flights are canceled, the service economy, the backbone of U.S. growth, simply stops breathing. We are seeing a collision of two worlds. The old world of 1993, where we shoveled snow and waited for the sun, and the new world of 2026, where a blizzard in the Midwest can trigger an energy martial law that reaches into the server rooms of Silicon Valley. But there is a darker thread here. While the president fights the ice, he is also fighting a clock. A January 30th budget deadline is looming. And as we are about to see in Act 3, the tragedy of a botched raid in a Minneapolis snowstorm is about to collide with the White House's emergency response in a way that could bring the entire federal government to a grinding, frozen halt. If you want to know why the federal government is currently paralyzed, you have to look at a street corner in Minneapolis. While Winter Storm Fern was burying the Midwest in ice, a team of federal agents, acting under the aggressive new mandates of the Trump administration, attempted a high-stakes raid. It ended with the death of Alex Pretty. For the administration, it was law and order in the middle of a blizzard. For Senate Democrats, it was the final straw. Here is the part everyone ignores. The Department of Homeland Security, DHS, funding bill was supposed to be a done deal. But by Sunday morning, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer declared the Minneapolis shooting appalling and vowed that Democrats would block the entire $800 billion spending package if the DHS portion wasn't stripped out. But there's a catch, a massive $75 billion catch. You might think a shutdown would stop the mass deportations or the federal raids. It won't. Because of the supplemental funding passed earlier this year, ICE is sitting on a $75 billion war chest that can keep them operational for years without a single new dime from Congress. The irony? A government shutdown, triggered by a protest against ICE, will actually furlough the very people we need to manage the storm. While ICE agents stay on the job because they are essential and self-funded, the FEMA coordinators and air traffic controllers are the ones who will be forced to work without pay or go home. The president isn't backing down. On Truth Social, Trump's message was a defiant jab at the Senate. Schumer wants to shut down the government because we're catching criminals in the snow. Let him. We have the funding. We have the power. The only thing he's shutting down is the heat for his own voters. We are watching a high-stakes game of chicken, where the ice isn't just on the roads, it's in the hearts of the negotiators. If a deal isn't reached by midnight on January 30th, the United States will enter a partial shutdown while still digging out from a $100 billion disaster. Now, let's talk about your wallet. Because what starts as a travel delay in Chicago ends as a price spike in London and Tokyo. Winter Storm Fern has officially become the highest cancellation event since the 2020 pandemic. But 19,000 cancelled flights isn't just about people missing vacations. It's about belly cargo. Visual. Infographic showing that 50% of global air freight travels in the belly of passenger planes. When those 19,000 flights died, so did the high-speed transit of life-saving pharmaceuticals, microchips, and critical machine parts. The just-in-time world just ran out of time. And then there is the Mississippi River. As the Arctic front pushes south, the northern stretches of the Mississippi are beginning to ice over. This is the artery of American agriculture. If the barges stop moving, the corn and soy that the world relies on stays stuck in silos in Iowa and Illinois. Follow the money. Bank of America has confirmed a 0.5% to 1.5% drag on Q1 GDP. That is nearly $300 billion in lost economic velocity. The energy factor. While Trump uses Section 202C to save the grid, the diversion of energy from data centers to homes is causing a massive slowdown in AI processing and cloud computing. For a weekend, the digital economy was sacrificed to keep the physical economy from freezing to death. Who wins? The speculators. The same people who bet against the Texas grid in 2021 are now betting on a global logistics failure in 2026. But for the rest of us, the ripple effect means that by next month, the Fern surcharge will be visible on everything from your Amazon delivery to your eggs. We are seeing a world that is so interconnected that a week of ice in Tennessee can trigger a budget crisis in D.C. and a supply chain shock in Singapore. Here is the Friday reality check that no one wants to admit. As we speak, the ice on your driveway is melting, but the political frost in Washington, D.C. is only getting thicker. We have a government that is less than 72 hours away from a partial shutdown, and the irony is so thick you could carve it. The very people who are supposed to be coordinating the recovery from Winter Storm Fern, the FEMA officials, the Department of Transportation analysts, the weather monitors, are the ones about to be told their paychecks are on indefinite pause. But follow the logic of the leverage. Senate Democrats, led by Chuck Schumer, have officially tied the entire $1.7 trillion spending package to the Minneapolis shooting. They are demanding an overhaul of ICE and CBP before they'll sign off on the funding. Meanwhile, President Trump has made his move. He isn't negotiating, he's campaigning on the chaos. By framing the Minneapolis raid as a success and the energy crisis as a failure of the previous administration's green policies, he has created a narrative where a shutdown doesn't hurt him. It hurts the establishment. So here is my bold prediction for the next 48 hours. We will not see a clean funding bill. We will see a storm extension, a frantic 14-day stopgap measure passed at the very last second. Why? Because neither side wants to be blamed for a shutdown while the South is still recovering from a $100 billion disaster. It's not leadership, it's strategic survival. But that leads us to the most uncomfortable question of all, the one that connects the ice, the guns, and the billions of lost GDP. We have watched the government seize private energy from data centers to keep the lights on. We have watched federal raids continue even as the Senate threatens to pull their funding. And we have watched 19,000 flights disappear from the sky because our infrastructure is so fragile it can't handle a forecast we saw coming 10 days away. Here is the question I want you to answer in the comments. Is Winter Storm Fern just bad luck from Mother Nature? Or is it a systemic stress test that we just failed? Are we watching a government that is losing control of its infrastructure? Or are we watching them use these crises to take more control over our energy, our movement, and our lives? Is this a natural disaster, or is it a management disaster designed to keep us in the dark? Let me know your thoughts below. The ice is melting, but the precedents being set this week are permanent. IMAX's report. We're watching the thaws, but we're digging for the truth. Stay warm, stay sharp, and I'll see you in the next one.